What's up, Coaster Demons? This is part 2 of my top 50 roller coasters I've ridden in 2021. This part will be 25 to 11, and the next part, which will be part 3, will be 10 to 1. So yeah, let's get into the video now. Number 25, The Beast at Kings Island. This is a really good wooden coaster. I went into this ride with low expectations because I thought it was going to be really rough and kind of boring. However, I got off blown away. This thing is amazing. It's super aggressive and very intense as well. The ride is so bumpy that you somehow get airtime on some of the straight sections of the track. The airtime moments on this ride, which was not that many, do give pretty good airtime. But that helix towards the end of the ride, the final helix, is one of the most intense elements I've ever experienced on any coaster. That element is insane. Overall, Beast is an absolutely amazing wooden coaster that you need to ride when you go to Kings Island. Number 24, Alpine Guys at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. This is an absolutely incredible invert. It's my number 2 invert I've ridden as of now. You'll see my number 1 invert literally one spot ahead of this. Anyways, Alpine Guys is an incredible B&M. The ride is very intense and aggressive. It's snappy. It's forceful. It just overall is such an amazing ride. I know once I re-ride this thing, it's probably going to move up higher for me because I haven't ridden this in a while. I do remember the ride kind of, but I feel like after a re-ride, I feel like this thing's going to absolutely bolt up on my rankings. Also, that Cobra roll is absolutely insane. You just get whipped right through it. The second half, it does slow down a bit, but the inversions in the second half then give great hang time. Overall, Alpine Guys is just such an amazing inverted coaster. It's butter smooth for how old it is too. I don't know how people said this thing is rough. Alpine Guys is butter smooth, like no rattle at all. It's just so smooth. And this is just overall such an amazing B&M, and definitely the best B&M at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg. Number 23, Raptor at Cedar Point. This is my favorite B&M inverted coaster I've ridden. The whippiness and snappiness of this ride is insane. Every single inversion element, you just get whipped right through if you're in the back row. Towards the front, it's not as whippy, but it's still pretty whippy. But the zero G-roll and the Cobra roll on this ride are amazing elements, and especially the helix. The helix at the end literally destroys your feet. It numbs them so hard. Also, that Cobra roll, if you sit in the back row on the right side of the train, you somehow get inverted ejector airtime on the Cobra roll. Inverted ejector airtime is basically where you get ejector airtime while you're upside down. It's an insane feeling, and Raptor does it very well. Overall, Raptor is an amazing B&M, and I hope Cedar Point does keep this ride around for a while because this thing runs so good still. It's also extremely smooth, I thought, too. It's aggressive, it's intense. It's just an amazing B&M overall, and absolutely by a mile the best B&M in Cedar Point. Raptor is incredible. Number 22, Superman the Ride at Six Flags New England. This ride may have dropped a lot for me, but I still think this is an absolutely amazing coaster. The ride has some really good full ejector airtime moments, some really good photo moments, and also some really good ejector airtime moments. If you sit towards the front, that one hill, I think it's called the It Happens hill, is amazing. You just get such strong ejector on that hill. The ride also pulls some really decent forces at some moments. The airtime on this ride is really good. However, I do find the ride to be pretty overrated because it depends where you sit. The airtime in the back row is not as strong as the front row. But in the front row, it's super strong airtime. The spaghetti bowl section is very forceful. It pulls some really good forces in that section, and I love how it twists around itself. The restraints are pretty bulky. I wish they were the Intamin T-bars, because then I feel like you would feel the airtime stronger, and I think this thing would be way higher as well if it had the T-bars. But nonetheless, Superman the Ride is an amazing hyper coaster. Definitely number 2 at Six Flags New England. It's an amazing ride that you need to check out when you go to Six Flags New England. Number 21, King Dakar at Six Flags Great Adventure. This was close with number 20, but I decided to put Ka in number 21. You'll see what number 20 is in a minute. Anyways, King Dakar is an absolutely amazing coaster. That launch gets me every time. It's so forceful. The drop is also really good. Flying up into that top hat is insane. Like, it pulls really good forces going up into it. And at the bottom of it, too, you get some good forces. The airtime hill is underrated, as I think you get some decent airtime on it, actually. But the speed and pure insanity of this ride is what makes it so good. It's short, but overall such a quick rush that it's just amazing. I don't understand why some people don't like this ride. It's literally so good. And it's definitely a top 3 coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure. Overall, King Dakar is an amazing coaster, and you have to ride it when you go to Six Flags Great Adventure if it's open, because this thing does seem to be broken down a lot. Number 20, Jersey Devil Coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure. This thing dropped a lot for me since when I first rode it. This went from being in my top 5 to now barely being in my top 20. And I'll be doing a video explaining why it's dropped so much for me lately. But right now I'm just going to talk about the pros of the ride, and I'll say some cons. Jersey Devil is still an absolutely incredible coaster, though. It has 2 really strong airtime moments. The first drop and that first airtime hill in the back row, amazing airtime. The 0G stall gives great hang time. The drop off of the crow's nest element, I think it's called. If you're in the back row, you get some great projector there. The 0G roll is kind of an underrated element, as although it doesn't do too much, it's still a fun element. The drop off the mid-course in the back row is great, and you do get airtime on that, no matter where you're at. Also, that turnaround after the mid-course brake run is really good too. But then you hit the final hills, and this is where the ride absolutely just dies down. These final hills basically do nothing except for that speed hill. You basically don't really get any airtime, sadly. Unless I got, out of all the rides I've had on Jersey Devil, which I've rode it 7 times so far, only one ride I've gotten really strong airtime on those final hills. Overall, Jersey Devil, though, is still an absolutely incredible coaster. Although this ride has dropped a lot for me since I first rode it, I still absolutely love it, and I still think this is a great fit for Great Adventure. It's definitely a top 3 coaster in the park. Although it is the weakest RMC I've done, I still love this ride, and it's an amazing coaster. Number 19, Goliath at Six Flags Over Georgia. What an amazing B&M hypercoaster. This is my number 2 B&M hypercoaster I've ridden. You'll see where my number 1 is in a couple spots. But overall, Goliath is amazing. The first drop is weak, but the first 2 camelbacks give extremely strong projector airtime. The helix is also very forceful, and the hop up into that helix also gives really good airtime as well. When the trim is not hitting on Goliath, which it wasn't hitting for me, you go flying over that one hill, which gives great ejector airtime. And then the finale hills. Those final camelbacks are insane. The ejector airtime on those hills is amazing. And then there's the finale part, and you get absolutely flung out of your seat on every single one of those hills. Overall, Goliath is an absolutely amazing B&M hypercoaster. I don't know why some people think this ride doesn't have airtime, because that's just not true at all. Also, Goliath has amazing pacing for a B&M hypercoaster. Most B&M hypercoasters I've ridden, the pacing isn't that great. However, Goliath shows me that B&M hypers can feel extremely fast-paced. Overall, Goliath is an absolutely amazing B&M hypercoaster, but it's not my favorite B&M hyper. Number 18, Diamondback at Kings Island. This is my favorite B&M hypercoaster I've ridden. The airtime is so strong. In the back row, you get literal RMC level airtime on that first drop. It's insane. In the front row, those first 3 camelbacks are super strong ejector airtime. The final hills are great projector airtime. The drop off the mid-course in the back row gives great projector airtime as well. The turnaround on this ride and the helix is pretty forceful as well. The splashdown part is cool, but nothing that special. But Diamondback is just overall such an amazing hypercoaster. Also, I don't understand why people call this thing rough. It was butter smooth for me, and it's probably the smoothest B&M hypercoaster I've ridden, to be honest. Diamondback overall is just such an amazing coaster. I went into this ride expecting it to be my number 2 B&M hyper. After my first ride on it, which was in the back row, it was my number 2 B&M hyper coaster. Then I rode it later in the day, front row, and it just moved up to my favorite. Front row Diamondback, it's just not the same ride as in the back row. Sure, the drop in the back row is little RMC level ejector airtime, but the first 3 camelbacks in the front row is insane ejector airtime, and the first drop in the front row is also really good too, I thought. Overall, Diamondback is an amazing B&M hypercoaster, and in my opinion, it's probably the best B&M hypercoaster in North America. What an amazing ride. Number 17, Storm Runner at Hershey Park. This is an absolutely incredible coaster. I haven't ridden this since 2019, since it was closed in 2020, and this ride just felt so much better than I remember it was. It felt faster, it felt more whippy, it felt more aggressive. This is honestly close to being my top 15. It's close with number 16 and 15, but those rides I just think are a tad bit better. But overall, Storm Runner is just an amazing ride. It feels like a weaker Maverick, and I love Maverick, and you'll see that in my top 10. The inversions on this ride are so good, especially the flying snake dive. Oh my gosh, that inversion is insane. The airtime moments on this ride, like the top hat and that weird twist towards the end of the ride, give great ejector airtime. The ride pulls really good positives. The launch is insane, and I love the "now get ready, here we go" before the launch. It just fits so well with the ride. Storm Runner overall is just an absolutely amazing Intamin. It's the number 2 Intamin at Hershey Park easily, and number 2 at Hershey Park easily. It's most definitely the second best coaster at Hershey Park. You'll see what the best coaster at Hershey Park is in my top 10. But overall, Storm Runner is outstanding. Number 16, Fury 325 at Carowinds. This is an absolutely amazing B&M Giga coaster. This was my number 1 coaster back in 2018, but since then, I've ridden so many more coasters that I just find to be better than this. I still absolutely love Fury 325, but there's one thing, I just don't remember this ride too well. I remember it still. I remember it being an absolutely incredible coaster, but I just don't remember it that well. I feel like after I re-ride this thing could have potential to be in my top 10. But as of now, it's going to land at number 16. Anyways, let's talk about the pros of this ride. The speed, the pure speed of this ride is great. The ride is pretty intense too. It has some great airtime moments. The first drop is pretty overrated, but for some reason, that trim hill, you get super strong ejector on that hill. I don't know why. The final camelbacks give great full ejector airtime. The helix really kills some of the speed though. This and number 15 are very close with each other. However, you'll see why I prefer number 15 when I talk about that. But overall, Fury 325 is an absolutely amazing coaster. The ride has great pacing. Like, it never loses its speed until the helix. The airtime is great at some moments. The ride has some really good positive forces. I love the treble clef, actually. That's a really good element. That first overbank, I think it is really, for some reason I really like that element. It just seems to whip you to the side of the train. Overall, Fury 325 is an absolutely amazing B&M. I know when I re-ride this coaster, it's going to move up for me, and I plan to go back to Carowinds next year, so this thing will probably be higher for me, but as of now, it lands at number 16, which may seem low to some people, but I still absolutely love Fury 325. What an amazing B&M. Number 15, Millennium Force at Cedar Point. This barely edges out Fury for me, just because I think Millennium Force has better positives and stronger airtime. The pacing is about equal with Fury 325. Both of those rides have equally as good pacing, but I feel like Millennium Force delivers stronger airtime. The first hill and second hill on Millennium Force give great sustained airtime. The first hill gives great sustained full ejector, and the second hill gives great sustained ejector. The speed hill also gives really good ejector. The first drop is one of my favorite first drops of all time. You get standing airtime on that drop. And the restraints, these have to be my favorite restraints on any coaster. They're so open and you could get so much room with them. Also, these overbanks are not bad. They actually pull some really good forces. I like the overbanks on Millennium Force. This ride is not forceless at all. In fact, I found it to be very forceful. The ride is decently intense, and I love I love rides where you could just feel the speed, and Millennium Force is definitely one of them. I wish I got a front row ride on this, but the front row always had a long line when I went. But back row Millennium Force and towards the front, because I got towards the front, was absolutely amazing. I rode this I think I rode Millennium Force 5 times when I went to Cedar Point, over the 2 days I had there, and this ride is just phenomenal. It is an amazing instrument. It's not top 3 at Cedar Point. You'll see the top 3 coasters at Cedar Point are all in my top 10. You'll see those when my top 10 comes out. But overall, Millennium Force is an absolutely incredible coaster. It's my 3rd favorite Giga coaster. This is just overall a fantastic coaster. Number 14, Twisted Cyclone at Six Flags Over Georgia. This is an absolutely fantastic RMC and definitely the best coaster at Six Flags Over Georgia. Goliath is really good, but it does not stand a chance against Twisted Cyclone. Twisted Cyclone is amazing. The ejector airtime on this ride is so strong. Every single hill, you get extremely strong ejector airtime. The inversions give great hang time and even some whip. Out of the station, those hills give ejector airtime. I don't know how those hills give airtime, but they do. I love the trains on this ride too. This train coaster by far has some of my favorite trains. This also is easily one of the smoothest coasters I've ever ridden. It is butter smooth. This ride is very short, but it packs in such a punch for how short it is. Every single moment on this ride hits hard, like it slaps. Twisted Cyclone is just overall such an amazing RMC. Very underrated because most people just don't seem to talk about this ride a lot compared to other RMCs. In my opinion, Twisted Cyclone is a absolutely incredible RMC. Although it is the second weakest RMC I've done, I still absolutely adore this thing. It is definitely the best coaster at Six Flags Over Georgia for me. This is just overall a amazing RMC, and you need to ride it when you go to Six Flags Over Georgia. What a coaster. Number 13, Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. This has to be one of the biggest surprises for me of this whole coaster season. I went on Thunderhead and I was disappointed by it. As you saw in my top 50, it was actually pretty low. So I went into Mystic Timbers with low expectations, expecting it to be right around where Thunderhead ranks for me. But oh my gosh, this thing is so much different than Thunderhead. The ejector airtime on this ride is literal RMC level ejector airtime. It is so strong. The airtime on this ride is just insane. The pacing is unbelievable. This ride never slows down. From beginning to end, you are hauling through this entire layout. The ride is also very aggressive, and there's even some decent positives. I love how you're going through the woods on this ride. I got a front and a back row ride on Mystic Timbers, and I wish I got more rides on it. But those two rides were just absolutely unbelievable. This is just a fantastic coaster. I love the first drop on this ride too. It's an amazing drop, but the airtime moments are just unreal. Every single hill, like, it's just strong ejector. This is just overall such an amazing coaster. It's not the best coaster at Kings Island, no, but it's close to being the best coaster at Kings Island. Overall, Mystic Timbers is an absolutely fantastic GCI. I love this ride so much. It's just perfect, and it's most definitely my favorite GCI coaster I've ridden. What a great ride. Number 12, Orion at Kings Island. Not only is this my favorite coaster at Kings Island, but it's my favorite B&M coaster I've ridden as well. This ride is outstanding. In the front row, every single airtime hill gives strong ejector airtime. In the back row, you get strong full ejector airtime on mostly every hill. That first drop in the back row gives near RMC level ejector airtime. It's insane. The ride is also very forceful as it pulls some really good forces on that helix towards the end of the ride and that turnaround. The speed hill delivers great ejector airtime no matter where you sit on the ride. And there's also this element towards the end of the ride, like this turn towards the brake run. You like twist into it and you just get really good ejector airtime on it for some reason. I don't know how you get airtime there, but that moment is really good and it's one of my favorite airtime moments. As I said, Orion is my favorite B&M I have ridden. This ride is just phenomenal. The pacing is amazing too. This ride hauls throughout the whole layout. I don't know if this or Mystic Timbers has the best pacing at Kings Island, but this thing hauls through its whole layout. It never loses its speed. Even with the trim on, you just feel like you're not slowing down that much. Overall, Orion is just an absolutely incredible coaster. This ride is also butter smooth too. No vibration at all. I don't know how people say this thing is rough. Has a vibration, because it does not have a vibration or it does not have a rattle. It is butter smooth. Yeah, overall, Orion is just an absolutely incredible B&M. Has amazing airtime, amazing forces, great pacing. This is just overall such a great B&M, and it is the best B&M coaster I've done so far. Number 11, Steel Curtain at Kennywood. This is by far the biggest surprise of any coaster I've rode this year, because I was not expecting this ride to even make my top 25. Yet it's literally in my top 15, near my top 10. This thing is unbelievable. The ride packs in so many elements, and all the elements are amazing. The inversions are great. Some of them give great hang time. Others give great whip. The ride is one of the most intense coasters I've ridden, as you just seem to pull so many good forces. The ride also never loses its speed as you haul through the whole layout. My favorite inversion on this ride is that final inversion, that weird quirk, like Drakenfire, I think, had something like this, and they removed that element. It was like a backwards corkscrew type thing. That's a really good element. Also, the airtime on this ride is really good. It's near RMC level airtime. Like, you get such strong ejector airtime. And the restraints are open on this ride too. Like, they feel open. You just go flying out of your seat on every single airtime moment. Like, it's really good. Also, this ride is butter smooth. I don't know how people say this thing has a vibration or a rattle. I found it to be butter smooth. Overall, Steel Curtain is an absolutely amazing coaster. It's very intense, has great ejector airtime. It's intense. It's smooth. The inversions are amazing. The pacing on this ride is top notch too. It never feels like it slows down. This is overall just an absolutely amazing coaster that you have to go to Kennywood to check out. So yeah, that is part 2 of my top 50 roller coasters I've ridden. Part 2, which was 25 to 11. Stay tuned for part 3, which will be 10 to 1, coming out sometime around the end of this month. So yeah, keep coasting on my coaster demons. Peace out.